State-sanctioned murder is not justice. It is a terrifying reality that President Biden must address now.
Christopher Villalba was my son, and he was the 7th executed on the Trump execution spree.
We must move with urgency and ensure that history never repeats itself. We all watched with horror as the first Trump administration went on an unprecedented execution spree, executing 13 people in a matter of months.
Penalty. Bring it forth.
That was more federal executions than the 70 years will see.
For many people, the death penalty is a debate about policy, law, and deterrence. But for me, it's deeply personal.
It took 28 minutes for my son to die. I learned that my mother and my loved ones were gunned down by a white supremacist trying to start a race war. He's not an innocent man on death row, but he's a man that has humanity, that I have been willing and worked hard to give forgiveness to. I do not want him to die. To spend the rest of his life in prison, yes, but not for him to die in the name of my family. We are urging you, President Biden. I hope you hear my words. I hope you get to hear the pain in my voice.
You can call the White House, and that's what we're asking people to do, is call the White House 11 to 3 p.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
I need each and every one of you to call the White House to let President Biden know that executions are not what the majority of Americans want. People will die under Trump, and we're trying to stop that. Be a part of this movement. Help us stop the death penalty.
We ready to get started here?
Go ahead, Charles.
Good evening. I'm Charles, and on behalf of Death Penalty Action, welcome to Death Penalty Action Transitions. Tonight, we honor legacy, welcome new leadership, and share about the urgent initiative, the Execution Crisis Fund. To start, we honor someone whose leadership, and I do mean leadership, has been grounded in justice, most definitely love and truth, Reverend Sharon Risher. Reverend Risher has helped us lead this organization with deep moral clarity and compassion. Her time on the board has been a gift to this work. Sharon, we are so grateful. Please share your reflections. I remember when I first met Sharon in South Carolina, it just blew me away. You know, like I said, I had the stories, and you start running into other people's stories, and she has a very powerful story. She's a very powerful person. And, you know, here we go, Sharon.
I tell you, I have been thinking about this all day. I said I was going to write down what I wanted to say to keep on track, and then I decided, no, I'm not going to write anything. I don't even remember when I started with death penalty action. But I know it was I know it's more, at least 5+ years, let me say that. But I tell you, it feels like I've been with this group a lifetime. Abe is if Abe was selling cars, I think he'd make a whole lot of money, because Abe could sell you. But it wasn't so much of selling me, it was me understanding that even in the complications of the death penalty and people around me that thought I had been going crazy, there was a conviction in my heart to say that this was something I needed to be a part of.
And because of death penalty action, my footprint in the world was increased. And so being a part of this is just not about visuals, because those are hard. This work we do is hard. But I knew it was something that I needed to be a part of. Every person that works on our staff, all the volunteers, all the people that send their money to help this organization, I tell you that your money is well spent, because everybody go beyond whatever it is their paycheck says, because to do this work, I don't think we can even afford a salary because it would be so high. That's the amount of heart and loyalty it takes to be a part of a movement like this. And it is a movement, a hard movement, but a movement even the more. I have learned things. I have learned to be a leader where I've always kind of wanted to pull back and not be in that leadership position. And some of that came from the doubt in myself. I'm out there, I'm doing this, that, and the other, but you know, run of the show and all of these things. I know where I'm this, but this took a whole nother level in me that said, these people believe in me, that I could be a leader of such a big group. And it was like, okay, Sharon, this is what you're tasked to do. This is your time to lead. And so I don't know what else to say. You know, I told myself I'm not going to cry tonight because everybody know I'm a crybaby, and I don't want to do that. But my heart is heavy. And I'm going to just say this, with everything that's going on in this world, my heart is heavy. People like me suffer from PTSD anytime a mass shooting or anything happens. But I keep going because I always do. Now I just kind of it's a time in my life where I'm finally at peace in my heart about the things God have called me to do and how I want to move forward in my life. But being a part of this group will be one of the main accomplishments. I will be able to say, well, what comes in between the date of birth and the date of death. I want that in between to show that I was a servant leader. Not that I had to lead people, but I served, and that's what God has called me to be, a servant. And I'm gonna say this right quick, and I'm gonna stop. I had a conversation with a juror from the Parkland shooting with Nicolas Cage. Oh, my dogs decided to go crazy. This lady's gonna be in Charleston next week. Reached out to somebody that knew me. Anyway, we connected. And she talked about how hard it was to be on that jury, to see everything, and to finally realize that she did not want him to die. She did not want him to be executed, and how all of those complicated feelings she had as a juror. And sometimes we don't think about them. At least I didn't think about jurors when I had to go through the trial. But this lady poured her heart out to me. She read about me. She read about the group. She doesn't feel like she's ready to join because, I was like, well, you need to come on with us. But she needed me to hear her. And that's what death penalty do. We listen. We listen with empathy and sympathy. So that's what it takes. That's what it takes. And I believe everybody that's on this call, anybody that's where you are, because you wouldn't be here if you wasn't. So thank all of you. All of you. I will only be just an email, or Abe will bug me and Sharon, I need you. And I learned like last year or two to tell Abe, start telling Abe no, and it felt so good. I love you, Abe. I love all of you, the board members who I've gotten to know over the years. I'm going to be around, and God bless.
Reverend Risher, we're so grateful for you. And that's why we started with that video from when we were together in Washington, D.C. to show your leadership. You led a coalition of nearly 500 organizations in demanding commutation from President Biden and passage of the Death Penalty Prohibition Act at Congress. And even though those things did not happen as we wanted them to, your leadership shone through. And we are so grateful that you allowed us to amplify your voice and to make you the de facto leader of this movement in that time. And you know, when you said you were ready to move on, I'm so grateful that you agreed to wait a little while and help us in this transition. And with us by phone, because there's a technical difficulty, is our new board chair, who, when I asked, who do you think should be the next chair, you said, well, that young woman from Maryland, who's also from Columbus, Ohio. And that's Reverend and Professor Brandy Slaughter, who is on by phone. So Brandy, please unmute, and I'm going to turn off my video.
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry to be off camera and to join by phone because this is truly a monumental moment. As mentioned, though, I am a professor at the University of Maryland, and we are hosting alumni and students. We're right at a rock's throw from the Capitol as I speak, and this building is not allowing for good connectivity, unfortunately. But certainly, when I think about this movement and I think about my own personal motivations, I was convinced to be an abolitionist. I didn't start this work having really thought in great detail about what I felt about the death penalty. I didn't have a family that sat around a dinner table and discussed social issues like this. And at one point, today happens to be 9/11, when I was in Army ROTC, I would have thought that people who did mass casualties would have been, the death penalty would have been appropriate, you know, in instances of treason. But it is meeting people like Reverend Risher, who, you know, sometimes we're very quick to, you know, vote people, disregard people, and not think that people's minds can change, their hearts can change. And when I met Reverend Risher and others like Reverend Risher and heard their stories, when I met people who were exonerated from death row, I began to have an imagination that was broader than just this is the only way, is to kill somebody to get justice. And I began to search myself from a faith perspective. About what does the scripture say about this? And so Reverend Risher, in a lot of ways, your leadership, of course, has been phenomenal for death penalty action. But I can only speak, you know, more closely for how you changed my mind and opened my eyes to what the death penalty is, which is cruel, inhumane. I will also say that as an advocate, as someone who's a professional in this space, who's advocated for lots of different causes, particularly children and marginalized people, you know, I've had some success, but I think the greatest success is that you led us through with President Biden and those commutations. What a huge lift that was. And while it wasn't completely what we had hoped for, certainly saving some lives is something that we can all go home to glory very proud about. Reverend Risher, you were talking about that dash in our lives. And I just honor you for all that you contributed, how open you've been to your healing process, because in doing so, you give us all the ability to heal, give us all the ability to have a greater sense for what's possible when we come together. And so that's what I want to say for now, Abe. And I just want to go off until we move further in the program. But know, Reverend Risher, your sistership, your fellowship, your kindness, your ability to share and to be so transparent about the pain of which you've experienced in your family has been absolutely transformative. Transformative in my life, but transformative in this movement, transformative in the policy possibilities that are in front of us. And I am going to channel all of your courage as we continue to advance this work moving forward.
Brandy, before you leave, I have to say, when I met you, I was impressed with your knowledge and all of that. And the same kind words that you have said about me, I could say about you. I knew, and when you came to Charlotte and we went to lunch and all of that. So has always been impressed with your professionalism, your warmth and kindness. And it's been a joy to have worked with you. I am glad that you will carry the mantle for this group, and I know that they will do well. So thank you, Brandy, for those kind words.
Thank you, Reverend Risher. Thank you, Reverend Risher. And I'm going to do the best I can to lift up, advance your work and advance your mother's legacy.
And I get to work with two strong females. Boy, I've learned so much, so much. It's just unbelievable. But now this next female, she's young. I met her down in Texas. Fire come out of her. I watched her step forward in a leadership position. And I said, who is this? You would expect a person to come out that's, a little bit more mature, that's had all the experience and have gone through things. But, after talking to her, it's not so much that she's gone through things, but she was definitely involved in everything. And that's the way I saw her, not just a title as an activist, but a person that is actively out there getting the job done and representing her community down in Texas and Brownsville. So I learned so much about that community. I learned so much about the camaraderie, and I learned a lot of that from talking to her and watching her. And now, the board is going to enjoy bringing her on. She's going to be our other board member. And I'd like to introduce Denise Palacios.
Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for making room for me on the board. Abe, thank you for asking, for believing in me. Charles, for your kind words. I think it means so much more when it comes from you and all of your years of advocacy, all of your knowledge. Also because he's never been this nice. But for those of you who don't know me, which is I think all of you, my name is Denise Palacios. I'm from South Texas, and I first learned about the incredible work that Death Penalty Action does when they came to the Rio Grande Valley, which is a region with 1.5 million people, over 60 miles. They came to our small town of Brownsville. And they were asking to halt the execution of Melissa Lucio, who is a woman from Harlingen, Texas, from the Rio Grande Valley, who is incarcerated, wrongfully incarcerated for the death of her daughter. So not only did she experience this horrible, tragic event and not have the ability to grieve through it or take care of her family, she was then, for political and corrupt reasons, incarcerated. And we know that if the government gets it wrong for one person, that is more than enough. The government should exist to take care of its people, not to kill its people. And so I'm very grateful to be here, to be on the board, and really sad that I don't get to continue working or get to the opportunity to work with Reverend Risher, who is an incredibly inspiring woman. But I hope we'll come into meetings every once in a while. I'm really, really honored to be part of this team.
And Denise, before we move to the next section, I did want to both welcome you, but also, we've invited Spanish language media and others who are bilingual, and I wanted to invite you to address folks in Spanish for a moment, just to give them something they can use on the Spanish language media.
Muchísimas gracias. Mi nombre es Denise Palacios. Estoy muy agradecida de tener la oportunidad de estar con todos ustedes otra vez después de que la organización Death Penalty Action vino directamente al Valle del Sur de Texas, el Río Grande, para parar la ejecución de Melissa Lucio en el 2022. Esta fue la primera vez en que yo conocí a este grupo extraordinario que trabaja en todos lugares del país, pero que vinieron a mi hogar en Brownsville para asegurarse de que esta mujer inocente, esta mujer latina, Melissa Lucio, no fallecería por el error del gobierno, que lamentablemente la encarceró, siendo ella una mujer inocente. Así que pues estoy muy agradecida de estar con todos ustedes, de poder trabajar con ustedes, de seguir aprendiendo, porque ustedes como activistas que se la pasan en todo el país, ¿verdad? Parando ejecuciones y también pues lamentando cuando sí pasan. Estoy muy agradecida de estar aquí y de poder seguir trabajando con ustedes. Muchísimas gracias.
Wow. That was powerful.
This is Brandy. I just wanted to jump in and say welcome to Denise. And part of what my experience has been in serving in this space and being in community is that this space, we need everybody. Don't take my comments wrong. We need everybody. We need each and every one of you. But sometimes I would show up to places, Charles, and it would be you and I as the Black people in the room. And you made a little joke about us older women too a few minutes ago. I am just happy that Denise brings greater diversity to this work, because I do believe that when we think about advocacy, impacted people are the folks that really sharing their stories. And so I'm just grateful, Denise, for all that you add, all that you've contributed to the movement thus far, and all you're going to bring to us on the board, because we need to be thinking about the future generations. We haven't ended this thing yet. And we need, to make sure that we are very diverse in who's at the table and who's lifting up the names of the people that are impacted. So grateful for you, Denise, grateful for all you're going to contribute, and still hoping for positive results there in Texas. I just wanted to come off mute for a moment and just welcome you, Denise, and just thrilled for your energy, and thrilled for new ideas about how we approach this work.
Yeah, I wanna piggyback on Brandy. Denise, yes, it's good to have flavor. So now we just have all this. See, y'all know me. So we need all the flavor we can get. So welcome. I know that you're gonna do good things, and we will just be able to reach more people. We will be able to help more people. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Most definitely welcome.
Charles, you're muted.
There, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, we're gonna get back to you, Abe. You know, you're the mastermind of all of this. We're gonna get into our farm pitch transition. We want to thank Sharon. We want to thank Brandy. We want to thank Denise. You know, three powerful people that have come into all of our lives. I'm going to be selfish enough to say definitely mine. And I want to thank them, and I've got all their numbers. So you guys are definitely going to be, go ahead, Abe.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you all. This has been a time that we've been kind of planning on and waiting for, and as several people have referenced, we're finding ourselves in a very interesting time. You know, one of those curses and blessings at the same time. May you live in interesting times, and boy, do we live in interesting times. And we are in a space in our movement where organizations are shutting down and disappearing, and really struggling to survive. And so far, Death Penalty Action has been able to survive and stands alone, actually, as the only secular national anti-death penalty organization that's focused just on the death penalty, that is focused on every execution, not just when there's a possibility of innocence, not just when it's the sexy case, but every execution, even in the most awful. We're also the only organization that's actually standing up every time that the president opens his mouth about the death penalty, or the Department of Justice and the Attorney General. You know, we're going to be on the streets in New York City next week for the first time I think we're doing this as Death Penalty Action, in protesting the seeking of a death sentence. When they're trying to bring a death penalty to a case in a state that doesn't have a death penalty for a person that killed one white man, at the same time as they decide not to seek the death penalty for a man who traveled hundreds of miles just to kill Mexicans, as many as he could. And he got 23 plus the injured. And they're not seeking the death penalty for him. And we're speaking out loudly about that. So we wanted to share with you, and we are grateful to everybody that is watching online and in the Zoom audience here, just a little bit about Death Penalty Action as we move into this transition. And Ali, if you can share the screen, just for those who are relatively new to this and maybe you haven't been, this is just a little bit about the organization and what we're looking to do, some of what we've been doing. You can move to the next slide. And basically, we're looking to build more of a national infrastructure, especially with the loss of Equal Justice USA, and a tightening up of what's even possible in different organizations and in support of state organizations. You know, we're hoping to build, and we want to build, a bigger infrastructure, and to work with others in doing so. But this is part of our vision. Next slide, please. And skip one, there we go. So, you know, nutshell, who we are, I think everybody knows. We're a national advocacy organization leading the charge to oppose the death penalty in the United States, engaging and empowering people at every level, from grassroots volunteers to policymakers, to take action and build lasting change. And we envision a world where justice is grounded in dignity, not death. We envision a future where no state carries out executions in our name, and where policies of healing and restoration replace systems of violence, and where we don't have, as we saw yesterday in Utah, an assassination and the governor coming out and saying, well, we've got the death penalty, even though they hardly do in that state. Next slide, please. You know, we're calling out what the death penalty is and who it impacts, and making sure people understand. And that's part of the challenge that we're in right now. we're in a space where we're seeing multiple executions, more executions in 2025 than we have seen maybe since 2012, when we had 43 executions, or 2013 when I think there were 38. We're going to be in that range. We've had 30 executions. The 31st is coming up next week. And there's already 8 or 9 others scheduled, and more coming that we know are coming. So that's the challenge that we're in, is calling out and using each of these executions and the facts within them to help people understand how the system is broken. The common thread among most of the people that are executed is abuse, addiction, and neglect at childhood. We're calling that out. We're shining a spotlight on it. And I believe that each time that we're successful in getting attention to the issues beneath the crime, that more people join the movement to end the death penalty. More people come to understand how we have failed when we have not intervened in the lives of people on the path towards violence. Next slide, please. So we're meeting the moment with strategy and urgency, and we're doing our best to be comprehensive and work with everybody that's engaged, from the legal community to the families of the victim when they want to work with us, and to the families of the people that are facing execution, and everybody in between. That's what it's going to take. Everybody gets a voice, and our job is to lift them up. This image, if you don't recognize this man, is John Lucio, the son of Melissa Lucio, and another of her sons is right behind John. This is from the day after we stopped that execution. Next slide, please. So this is looking at just where we were in January. In addition to the clemency one for 37 people on federal death row, and we helped lead that campaign under the leadership and the voice of Reverend Sharon Risher, our board chair, who is now our board chair emeritus. And on top of that, we did what we could to be helpful in North Carolina, where they won a clemency and commutation for 15 people. But in particular, the people among us, myself included, have been a part of repealing the death penalty in 10 states so far, and we're going to continue looking to do that. We're working very hard with folks in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Missouri, where there are possibilities for legislative change, and in other states too. As well, at the same time, we are fighting back when they're trying to expand it. Not always successfully, but in some places we have helped halt the progression of bad legislation. And that includes in Nebraska and in Kansas and in Ohio, where so far in those states we've held back we've been part of the team that's helped hold back the introduction of gas suffocation executions as a method, for example. And certainly more than 1 million people have taken action through our online tools, and that continues to grow on a daily basis. Next slide, please. So what are we doing? As you know, real-time response to scheduled executions. We're engaging in the legislative processes where it's possible to do so, and engaging people on our list to support state-level campaigns that are being run by others. As I mentioned, the other opposing opposition, and just all the things that it takes to keep our movement present and relevant and engaging and attractive to, as I often say, our mission is, not really to change people's minds, but simply to find the people that agree with us and get them to do something. Because, it's one thing they say, well, we're preaching to the choir, but, sometimes the choir isn't singing the right song, and sometimes they're not singing loud enough. And sometimes they're singing too loud. And we need to, have a choir director. And in a way, death penalty action serves in that role. Next slide, please. Often behind the scenes, you don't hear, and there's a few other people here too that you don't really see too much of. You see Allie all the time. You see Charles some of the time. sometimes, rarely, do we see Scott, or tonight with us is Trish Cooper, who has been helping me for about a year now, and sometimes it's hard to tell, but that's because she's doing a lot of the things that would be just on my plate if we didn't have her help, and she keeps me in line, or tries to, as much as she can. So we're grateful to have all these people on the team, and we want to keep all these people on the team, and that's really the key thing that we need to be worried about right now. Next slide, please. You can keep going. Next slide, please. So this gets to change. This is obviously from a few months ago. Reverend Sharon Risher is coming off the board. We're adding Denise Palacios, and as board chair, we'll be adding, moving Reverend Brandy Slaughter, Professor Reverend Brandy Slaughter, up to the leadership in this. And she's already been showing up big as board chair. So we're grateful for you, Brandy, in your new role as the chair of the board. Next slide, please. And basically, this is our call to action. We're hoping not just to survive, but to thrive. And over the next 3 years, we're looking to create more investment in expanding state-based organizing, building more rapid response. That's part of why we've begun to call our current fundraising campaign the Execution Crisis Fund, because we want to recognize and shine a spotlight on the fact of the execution spike that's going on, and building our national storytelling platform to really lift up the voices and the stories of the people most impacted by this. And it's a vision of mine to actually have enough resources to be spreading the wealth and providing funding to other underfunded state efforts to the extent possible. So it's going to take somebody really blessing us and investing in us for us to be able to do that, but that's the vision. And all of this towards building to be ready at a time when Congress and state legislatures are ready to move toward progressive change. That's not the moment that we're in right now, but that doesn't mean we can't be getting ready for that moment. Next slide. And that's sort of what we've already talked about. These things that we're already talking about is part of the vision. So we can keep going. Next slide, Annie. So we want to talk to people, and you can turn this off and stop the screen share now. We want to talk to people who have the ability to help create the change we want to see. The game-changing level donors are who we're looking for, in addition to being grateful for every person that's chipping in $5 or $100. I'm so grateful to say that in the last month or so, we've actually added about 40 or 50, more than 40 new monthly donors to the Death Penalty Action Sustainer Program, which is super exciting. These are people who have committed using a credit card online. And some people actually do this personally by just in their bill paying software on their own bank account, sending a check every month. So not everybody's actually in the system. But we have over 400 people now that are monthly donors. And our goal is to expand that vastly, because what's happening, especially in this moment, is we're seeing a real downturn in small dollar donations on a regular basis. And I think that is a reflection of the recession that we're in and the concern that people have about what's going to happen next in the country. And we are all concerned about that. But it's going to take consistent and increased funding for us to be able to continue to survive and make the impact that we want to make on this issue. And we know that maybe the folks that are watching tonight don't have that capacity, but we ask everybody to think about, who do you know? Who do you know that if you invited them to support something that you support, they might do so? Just because you invited them, even if it's not their issue. Please think about that. And then if we can support you in reaching out to people that might be in a position to help, all it is an invitation. And most of the time, people are going to say no. But a cardinal rule of fundraising is if you don't give people the invitation, then how are they going to respond? And in fact, really, we're robbing them of the opportunity to help stop executions. So when you think about it that way, that's the opportunity that we're in. And we want to make sure that people have the tools. And that's why, we've created several new programs. One is a fundraising team where if you sign up, you'll get some extra supports and encouragement and prompts to do exactly what we're talking about. You're going to see soon people have their own fundraising pages, kind of like what people do with birthday fundraisers on Facebook and that sort of thing. So if you wanted to just create your own fundraising page and have it be, Charles's fundraising page, and set your own goal, $100, $500, and then start reaching out to people and saying, hey, would you like to help me achieve my goal to help this bigger cause? That's how people may end up joining and supporting. And that's just one of the different kinds of things that we can do to build on this. So with that, I want to make sure that we have time for questions. So if there are questions, you can use the Q&A or the chat or raise your hand. And we open the floor now.
Hey, Abe, before we go into the questions, I did just want to get in on just making a couple comments.
Please.
We are in an urgent moment. We're in an urgent moment because we know who Trump is. We know what he's going to do. Past performance is already out there for us, and it's going to predict future performance, right? We know that there are increases in executions all across this country, and we know that is not likely to slow down anytime soon. At the same time, DPA is always there. And sometimes familiarity breeds contempt. You see, okay, this organization's always out there. They're always, ringing the bell. They're always naming the names of those who are facing this horrible evil, right? But we have to also understand that those things come at costs, right? And we need your help to help us stay there. There's nothing about our resolve that is diminished because of this administration and because of all the things that are happening across this country. If anything, we are digging in our heels. We want to do more. We're like a pit bull after some meat. I mean, but you are the thing that can fuel us, right? You can be the kerosene on the charcoal. Or not kerosene. What do we put on charcoal? Y'all know what I'm saying. But either way, you guys are the ones that can help kind of fuel our work. And I'm just really, I know that oftentimes we're singing to the choir, and I'm not sure who's in the audience because unfortunately I'm on phone. But I want to thank everyone who contributes to this work. But again, the urgency is now. It's not going to slow down. It's only going to get worse. And so we need your help. We need you. We need you to dig a little deeper. If you have the ability to go a little deeper, we need your friends, families. Heck, we'll even take your foes' money. Send them our way because this work is so important. And I'm biased. I feel like a death penalty abolition movement without a DPA, I don't know what that movement looks like. I don't know who is going to speak for impacted people. So we need you. We need your support. And that's what I wanted to say, Abe. I'm sure there's questions. And if there's any questions for me, text me and feed them my way. But we need you like we've never needed you before. And so if you are moved by the work that Abe has done, right, help us out. Share our content. Share your context. But also help us dig a little deeper. I got to dig a little deeper. I'm a little school teacher over here. But I got to scrape together my coins so that we can continue to have this work move forward because it's meaningful. It's meaningful in the lives of the people who we are supporting and who we are fighting for, folks that have felt oftentimes forgotten. So thank you so much for listening to my rant. But I hope you're inspired and encouraged to do a little more and give a little more. Thanks.
Thank you, Brandy. I do want to acknowledge that other board members are here. Chris Brown is on the board from Alabama, and not present tonight, but with us always are Daniel Flynn and Susan Grease and David Sr. and who am I blanking on? There's one other person that's also on the board. And
Connie.
yes, of course, Senator Connie Johnson. Tonight we wanted to shine the spotlight, of course, on our outgoing board chair emeritus and our new chair and our new member, Denise Palacios. So looking for last call on questions. And
Could I say something real quick, Abe?
Please, Charles.
You know, I was sitting here and I was listening to Brandy and talking about the importance and the work that Death Penalty Action does, and me and my family actually being victims of the death penalty. I remember in 1994, I had no help. I did not know where to go. I had no one to reach out to. And I mean, for a lot of years, I was out there by myself fighting the death penalty. I mean, oh my God, I didn't even know there was organizations out here. Had I known there was a death penalty action, my life would have been a lot different. I think things would have been totally different in my brother's outcome. You know, I never thought other executions. I thought once my brother was saved, it was over. But I saw how badly they needed my help because I could see inside people. I knew what they were going through. But to make a long story short, you know, my family went through this, and we went through this with no money, and we're still tied up in this 31 years later. And I believe that 31 years of us being tied up in this is due to the lack of finances, the lack of money. At the time when something could have happened, we had no money. So we had to suffer in so many different ways. And so, you know, when I saw what we did for Melissa Lucio, you have no idea. I wish that was what was happening for my family. So when I see other families getting help, that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Charles. And, you know, that's one of the things that I feel grateful for is, you know, not having a story to tell, being able to help lift up the voices and the efforts of those who do have stories that nobody wants. Stories like Charles's, stories like the Lucio family, the Jones family, the Reed family, and now we're looking at the Boyd family. Been back and forth recently with the brother of Anthony Boyd, who's scheduled to be executed in Alabama in October. And we're also working with folks on the ground in Texas and in Missouri and Florida. It's like a fire hose that we're trying to drink out of and doing the best that we can with what we've got. But just being, I feel honored to be in a space where I can show up for others who are most often finding nobody answering the phone, nobody getting back to them. That's the one thing that we want to try to do, is make sure that at the very least, we're going to answer the call, even if we don't have the answer that you need. And even if we know, you know, we're not the lawyers. And even if you have the best lawyers in the world right now, it doesn't seem to matter in terms of stopping executions. Even if you have issues that have never been heard in court, it doesn't seem to matter. And that's a part of what we have to keep shining a spotlight on, because if nothing else, we can highlight the injustices that are happening. And so with that, we are grateful for everybody being present tonight. And Brandy, I want to offer you the last word before we close it out.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. I just want to thank all of you for your attention this evening, all of your support through all of our activity and programming. We do this in community. We can't do this on our own. We do this because of all of you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to lead this organization, and we're open to hearing from you. You know, what are the new ideas? What are the new things that DPA can do to be responsive to this moment? And again, please, sir, please, ma'am, think about if you were, what I try to teach my students is to be empathetic. You might not always be directly impacted, but if you were in that position, what would you want someone to have done for you? What would you have wanted someone to have said? Would you have wanted someone to give and contribute to a righteous work? And so I leave you with that this evening, that it takes all of us, and we're grateful for all you've done thus far, and hopeful for a new spark of energy in your mind and in this moment that will encourage you to think about how you can deepen your relationship with this work, and part of that deepening through some type of financial contribution. Abe, as always, we're grateful for your leadership. I am so excited for the board and what we can accomplish together. And Reverend Risher, hugs. I've got to get down Charlotte Way again to hang out with you some more. We're grateful that you're just a call away. With that being said, let's keep everybody held close and tight and with warm thoughts this evening. And again, I'm hopeful that something that was said here today, particularly in Abe's presentation, encourages you to do a little bit more. It's hard, but imagine a world without the death penalty. Imagine what role you can play in that. And we all have a space, we all have a talent, a gift, something that we can contribute. So thank you and good night, Abe. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Brandy. We're so grateful again for your leadership. I do want to say again, thanks everybody for attending. I note in the chat and in the audience is Gary Drinkert, the chair of the board of Witness to Innocence. We're honored by your presence, Gary, and grateful to be in partnership with you. And I'll see you in Alabama in a couple of weeks. I'm sorry to say, it's always this thing that I often have to say to people is I'm sorry to see you again, because so often I get to see people who are friends and allies because we're together around an execution. So I'll be sorry to see you all again next week on our vigil, and grateful to see each of you just being present with us in this movement. So I hope you've been inspired as I have been tonight, and we're grateful again that we get to do this work together with each and every one of you. So with that, make it a great night.